She
never emailed me.
Yours, she didn't email me.
Ball's in her court.
Okay.
She wants the speed to slow down.
Yeah, I know, that's like, that makes no sense.
That's like my stop sign guy. He never emailed me with his request to take it off the service. Is right now. They put his stuff.
That's good, because we got a ban on that here.
That's why I didn't
Oh, yeah?
fall for that.
Unless, of course, it's a town hall. Case, every street, in the middle of every street.
They're already on every corner.
Almost. I just need to get it done before it becomes illegal to do it.
So let me ask the question. I have a person who has parked their boat, it's a rather large boat, on the street. I don't see any
There's
plate
legislation.
on the trailer.
There's no plate on the trailer? I saw that one.
Yeah, I looked, I didn't
What
see
was
it.
not on East Chester Street?
They can't park. the boat
3311671.
Yeah.
Tell me it's not on East Chester Street.
That's a big boat, too.
Violations.
But if it had the plate, but a plate would make it okay, so that's a licensed vehicle. Because I've been looking.
Even if
at
they have a plate on it, they can't park the boat on the city street.
Well, they can't
We
do
have
24-hour
eight.
period.
Wait for 24 hours. That's right.
Move
And
it.
then they got.
What if they only move it a foot?
It's been there a week and a half.
We're the big issue on Washington.
Washington.
Isn't that
Lynn Star Center.
This gets for the band. What are you done with it?
Right on
This is fine.
What is it?
All right, this is what I think.
Well, something.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I believe it is. The county government.
So,
Oh, okay.
what are we doing? Those have been more ice ones we're throwing in the trash. City bus, what do they need ice service for? Or water service?
Night vision equipment, I want some night vision equipment.
Why don't you write?
I wanna,
You're the lawyer. You're good, right?
I wanna make, I
It's not
wanna,
very official. I'm
You're
usually
the
like,
financial
Mr.
conservative.
Dunn,
Yeah.
I wanna propose a fundraiser.
you would know that.
I think we can raise a lot of money.
Yeah?
Every time someone mispronounces her name, they should have to kick in $10.
Whose name?
$10.
My name.
Elisa.
There are two people in this room who say my name right.
It's Elisa.
It's him, and Paul Kirby walked out. My name is Elisa, not Alyssa.
I pronounce your name
Elisa.
correctly.
You do not.
I do too.
I say Lisa. Or Elise, I call it Elise.
Elisa.
I think it's a good
Elisa.
fundraiser.
E, just go with E.
That'd be the ball jar.
It's like Lisa.
Lisa. Is it with an A or an E?
It's
At
E-L-I.
Lisa.
Elisa.
This
E-L-I-S-A.
has to be rubber
But you just said
band.
Elisa. Elisa.
Oh, that's the wrong sound.
Elisa or Elisa is
E,
fine.
very
What's he-
good.
what is his
I
name?
gotta-
There's nothing worse than saying bad now,
You
right?
know, I'm actually used to it because it's never, no one ever says it right.
Right.
But he usually, like, every time somebody.
Well, the first
Yeah,
time I
it's
met
like
her, I
chalkboard
asked her
for
how to
me.
pronounce it, because I wasn't sure, so when she said it.
Say it, Bill.
Elisa. I'm gonna probably start saying it wrong.
Elisa.
I have an employee who spells her name just like you do.
Dude,
She's
congratulations.
gonna be very upset when I tell her Laura that she's going to pronounce it wrong.
Really?
She said, she said
Because we,
Alyssa,
so the
she
year,
has one
so
S.
that- and you have
She's
another,
two S.
they have a
Well,
sibling.
two S's would make
So in
Alyssa.
the section
I have
of
one
siblings.
S.
You have one S?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the one looks just like it.
Yes.
And Ariana, I said, it's gotta be,
I have 3 years.
Gotcha.
17.
What?
That's
I know, we
Yeah.
is there any yearbook?
And it's funny, because I even, like, I sent an email, and I just signed it Elisa, and then sometimes people send me back an email, and I like Alyssa.
June, graduation.
No, I'm up on the board.
There's more right here. You want more?
My daughter is devastated.
We're doing the.
I'm gonna be on stage. I'm gonna be
Yes, she's not gonna get away with it.
No. Actually, mom gives her her diploma.
How did you bring the fundraiser to go?
It's all right.
I mean,
I get to give the middle one her diploma next year.
can we do that?
Did you order?
What?
Harold? You got a blue can, actually.
That's why I don't remember it.
that'll start again? What year was this?
Frozen rats are no charge.
Oh, everything's changed. On a street now, he's gonna get 3 hits. I'm not playing this other than
You should money, so you don't see me, you know, that old guy savings.
Is this your live stream?
Yeah, it's on. What? It's on.
Back of my head. Best angle.
It's just really nice to see you there.
Hi.
Get my message.
I did.
Somebody else.
Yeah, I've gotten, like, since I emailed that, I got, the whole situation. Yeah, well, they have, no, they do not. Yeah, no, they have to, that's, they have to.
Jersey Shore.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah, well, he's not Reinhardt's,
Shuttle buses just like from North or there. Yeah, the exist station, Slangle. The trains are just, just pull up trains, just stay there. Well, no, you don't drive now. What are you gonna do with them? What are you gonna do with
well, that's fine.
Man, this must be the fourth meeting.
They got another bus.
This is not the funniest.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. No, but I just want to get the speakers out of here first, for people who are talking, get them out first, and then, so, that's my thought. All right.
This is a one-way street.
you ready?
No, that's the other, kind of to the side, so we can start.
Did you take my other thing off here?
I, you know, I think we're not certain, so we can address it, I didn't know, you want to deal with it tonight?
Yeah, because they have made a sign.
What?
But do we need legislation?
Yeah.
Okay.
For what?
The deaf child area.
They made their own sign.
They made a sign.
Oh, that's good. So we're not going out.
Yeah, we got
let's bring this, let's deal with the public safety and general government component of the meeting. We'll get back to vouchers at the end of the meeting. You all have an agenda before you. We're going to modify it, or we're going to change the order of things just to get the speakers who are here, the people who are going to present. We're going to deal with them first and then move on to the other issues. So what I propose is that we talk about the mediation of public art first, we move on to the discussion regarding emergency response, and then from there move to the ethics and disclosure law. So, does anyone have a problem with that order for the present? Okay. So, Guy, you want to come up and talk to us since this came from Cuba? I figured it made sense to have Cuba. Sorry. And excuse me for any misstatements I may have, because as you all know, there's a baby, and so I'm slightly delirious, but that's okay. So Guy, if you want to have a seat or stand as you please and
Sure.
talk to us about.
Thank you. So, I believe you have a letter both from me. I'm Guy Kemp. I'm Vice President of Community Development at Rocco, Rural Ulster Preservation Company, just like I did with this cool hat. And I'm also on the Cuba board, the Kingston Business Association board. And we've had discussions in Uptown. We've observed that there is an important conversation that could be convened by the city to discuss the role of public art and to bring it into the municipality along the lines of other municipalities on par with other kinds of commissions and boards. I've provided to you, I think, a list of some 20 separate reference materials, including statutes and programs, policies that have been adopted in other communities, and several discussion items. I'm also bringing with me today 2 studies, one which is from Princeton University from 2002, which is titled How the Arts Impact Communities. And while this is a pretty big volume, and I only printed one of them, it is available online, and I think probably that would be something that could be put into the file. I also brought a document from the Project for Public Spaces, which again is a nationally prominent organization, and it talks about how art economically benefits cities. And I think that's really what this is all about. This is about helping to promote the arts and culture in the city of Kingston for the betterment of the community and for the improvement of the city culturally and artistically. And art has been found to benefit cities in a number of specific ways, beyond just the job creation and the public energy that it brings a community. It inspires pride, it marks special places and adds a grace note to ordinary places. It offers residents and visitors a source. I'm sorry, did I grab your chair?
No, it's fine, I don't have a chair.
It's your chair. And it defines a sense of place and identity for communities. And so that is our objective. We think it's an important and, in fact, long overdue conversation for the city to convene. And there are, I'm certain in this community, lots and lots of artists, some of whom are involved with the ASK Society, the Art Society of Kingston, but many of whom are individuals who perform, who write, who take pictures, who make pictures, who make sculptures, and so forth. Potters, photographers should be involved in this conversation. And we're encouraging the city to undertake it, to help navigate through those cultural waters that otherwise are left unnavigated. And it's an opportunity the city has to promote tourism and to benefit the economy. So that's sort of my spiel on public art today, and you may have some questions for me. I wanted to bring you these 2 documents, and if there is a file being assembled, it should be in it. And if you have any questions for me.
So the biennial sculpture exhibit, is that curated by?
It seems to be done by ASK, and it is essentially an ad hoc entity that takes on that role and works with the city to help provide that. That's one model that other cities have used. Some have formed formal commissions. Most have adopted some kind of guidelines or policies and a program to help guide the installation of public works, and in fact, work to solicit gifts of public art and install them either permanently or temporarily in the benefit of public spaces. So, you know, there are a number of different approaches that I've identified and that you have now the links to visit in terms of the way other communities do it. But ask is certainly an important, and they ought to be part of that conversation, for sure.
I'm a little confused. What specifically are you looking for? How can we help, or how does it tie into what we do?
I think that the action or the next step for you folks is to convene that conversation, as you have on everything from climate change to complete streets. I sit on that commission. Start to convene the conversation, bring some of those folks to the table, and encourage them to work with you on developing a policy to sponsor the arts and culture in the city. And you know, we see the benefits of that in other communities, from public murals being installed down in Newburgh to the famous cow program from Chicago and New York, to the dogs of Catskill and or is it the cats of Catskill and the dogs of Hudson? Are you familiar with that? So they created this mob. Are you familiar with this?
No, I think when you're finished, I want to step on
Okay.
it.
What they've done in Hudson, and they've done as a parallel program in Catskill, is they've created these sculptures of dogs and cats that are mounted actually on their streets, I think on a special platform that was devised for their meters. And they actually invite artists to participate in that, and it's a fundraiser afterwards. They're auctioned off to benefit the community. And it's a model that was used for the cows out in Chicago, where it's because of that city's long history with stockyards. What they did is they created a model of a cow and had artists paint them and sculpt them and change them and install them on the street. And it became a giant street exhibition, much like the biennial is here, but for purposes later of auctioning them off to sustain the arts, to benefit parks and so forth in that city.
So the sculptures and artwork that are presently throughout the city is all based from apps?
I think much of it is, but I think that's an important part of the question. There should be an inventory done of what public art is there now.
I didn't hear you.
Dinosaur.
Yes. It's from apps.
Well, I think they curated it, and it was every 2 years, and they would announce it and ask artists to submit works, and then they work with the budget, because some of the stuff, it's not, the artists usually donate their stuff, but it's got to be sometimes mounted or moved or insured, or there's things to, that go with it. And so I think there's a budget that goes with it. And previously, a lot of it uptown and downtown, the last couple of shows, I think it primarily just been down on the roundabout, and that may be a budgetary.
So it's similar to like Portland had the boats and Sorganies with the heads, with the horses. I mean, look, Saratoga County, they have or statue horses, life-size, throughout the whole city.
There are some communities that have really spectacular examples of these programs. I think probably the best that I've seen in terms of murals, literally on walls, is the city of Philadelphia. And there are volumes that have been, including photographs that illustrate what a great program that is. That was embraced by the city a decade and a half ago, and it's resulted in, and I don't recall the count anymore, of how many murals have been installed. And there are art incidents in places that you wouldn't typically think of them or wouldn't necessarily think that they were even appropriate for art, but they turn out to be very powerful and important works overlooking places where people park, vacant lots, gardens, and pocket parks throughout the city. And they're really terrific, and they just make use of old brick buildings that otherwise were just really vacant. There are other cities that are doing similar things. There's probably no more blighted city in this country than Detroit. And they've done a fair amount of this work, in part to decorate the empty shells of buildings that are no longer in service at all, but to try to create something of value on the streetscape. There are other places that have celebrated our programs. Venice Beach, California is one. It's a tourist destination, and it becomes a really powerful and important presence for the visitors there, and it's something that constitutes, you know, memories of that city and places that people take pictures of themselves, and it's terrific. It's kind of about the vitality and the lifeblood of that city. So that's the suggestion here, and it's an opportunity really to start that conversation. I did some research, and I haven't been able to find, there must be some, but I haven't found a counterpoint, an argument that this is a bad idea for a city. And again, it may be an academic study. I couldn't find it. I'd be interested, I challenge somebody to find it. But I was surprised to see how some of these art commissions and these public policies for art predate us by many, many years. The city of New York had one dating back to the 1890s. And it seems to me that, you know, how could Kingston not do this? I spoke to a couple of residents here, and they were surprised that that hadn't occurred, and that there was actually no commission, like there's a heritage commission or you know, the landmarks commission, those kinds of entities. It seemed to them surprising that really we don't have that. How could we not have that? So that's my suggestion. And again, we're not advocating any one policy. We think it ought to be a conversation that the community participates in, and that a policy and a program is developed from it.
Have you reached out to any other organizations or artists or any other people that would be interested in this, such as ASK?
I know ASK is aware of it. They think it's a great idea, particularly if it's going to result at some point in opportunities for commissions and for permanent installations. And you know, I think that really it's an opportunity for the city to reach out to ASK and to engage other artists. I've been meeting with a lot of artists, as it happens lately, on a whole other project that I'm working with. And most of them have been enthusiastic about it. I think they're waiting to see where this conversation goes and where this leads. I know there's been already some dissenting voices on this subject, and I read that there was a concern that perhaps this could have a chilling impact on the arts. And I'm noting for you something that I think everyone in the room is aware of. We currently have 2 graffiti artists who are in front of the court system right now. And it seems to me that's an important conversation to have. I think that has a chilling impact on the kind of art that they believe they were advancing in the city. It seems to me that this is an opportunity to convene that conversation, to come up with something of ground rules to move forward, so that there is less of that contention in the community about what constitutes art, what art's supposed to look like, and how the city is supposed to be benefited by it.
Go ahead, Vern.
Yeah, the last couple of years, we've experienced a lot of mural art uptown especially. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm aware of the issue about the Opaz festival. First off, I have no opinion that I think is particularly important about the quality of the work or the visual images involved with that. The one thing that I can report is that I've heard some concern expressed about how those broadsides that are pasted onto the wall, they deteriorate over time, and so that it creates sort of an unsightly appearance for the community. That's something that I think a policy should address. There's a period of time where art is art, and after a period of time when it's decayed and been destroyed, it's not art and it's kind of litter.
But don't you think that's the responsibility of the artist? Because I can cite a building 2 years from the first time they put it up, the remnants of it are still there, okay? It's within 50 feet of the Senate House.
I think that would be something that a policy should address, don't you?
No, I think it would be something that the artist would be responsible for.
This
Or
would
the
be-
group that advocates it.
Is it being addressed now?
No?
Well, then maybe the policy would be able to sponsor that. And I agree with you, I think that there is a responsibility that the artists have to maintain their work. I mean, I think that's a fair observation, and maybe that ought to be a part of that.
But on the other hand,
Responsibility.
you mentioned that, and the term graffiti artists, we're talking about the red goats uptown, okay? I think they're being made.
Is that what they were?
They're being made an example of, even though there's graffiti in the parking lot on the planters, not too far down the street, okay? When in other areas of the city, and I can think of one building, which is several hundred feet from the police department and from the judge's chambers, where they spent thousands of dollars getting it off the brick of the back of St. Peter's School, and they're still working on it. To me, that's not art, that's vandalism.
I think that that's an
Where
important.
uptown, the red goats was like in your face,
Yeah.
okay?
Well, Bernie, I took a very kind of unusual position about it. I had no objection to the red goats
Me neither.
as long as the planters were painted red behind them so you couldn't see them.
Guys, let's get back to the issue. I think the issue is, we can have this debate about that issue, but I think the issue here is whether or not the city should have a policy or explore the idea of having a policy. And if that's the case, are you willing to reach out to, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea, people may have different opinions, but would you be willing to reach out, since this proposal came from you and the organization, to reach out to other organizations, other interested parties, both pro and con, so that we can continue that conversation and potentially develop a policy?
Sure, I think that's a fine idea, and I'm certainly willing to help any way I can.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure you all remember that we are beginning, at the very beginning now, of a comprehensive planning committee. Comprehensive plan is about, start to take shape. The consultants have executed the contracts, they're ready for the work. This is exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and that's really, in my mind, the best point for them to start, because we're going to talk about what does the city look like, how are we going to get to what the city, we think the city should look like, and what mechanisms to